Welcome to another sparkling edition of Plank of the Week, the fastest growing television show in the history of talk radio. It's the only growing television show in the history of talk radio, of course. I'm delighted to welcome back into the studios because now we can have real people in real situations. Alex Phillips, former Brexit Party MEP, and Kevin O'Sullivan, and my colleague on Talk Radio, of course, former colleague from the Daily Mirror. We now do a podcast as well together called The Thought Police. So welcome to both of you. It's been quite a week for plankish behaviour. But just before we get to it, let me tell everybody to subscribe to the YouTube channel here at Talk Radio, and you'll get all sorts of other great videos that we've put out from time to time throughout the course of every single day. So Kevin, who's your first plank of the week?
Well, I'm very dismayed to nominate Mr. Boris Johnson.
Are you?
The allegedly Conservative MP who's acting like some kind of crazy nanny state idiot,
right.
Who is forcing us now, or is telling us all now, to lose £5 to protect the NHS and to go cycling and not to eat junk food. And this is none of his business.
Right.
I don't want a Conservative Prime Minister to behave like this. You vote Tory for the administration not to interfere in your private life, and he seems to have lost track about everything that a Tory government should be. I think the coronavirus crisis has got him hooked on nanny state diktats, rules and regulations, and he's getting to like telling us what to do. For me, the hero of the week so far is the artist David Hockney, who gave the Prime Minister a lesson in the art of freedom of choice. If you want to smoke, if you want to drink, and if you want to eat unhealthy food, you are free to do so in a free society, which we still vaguely are. So Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, is the nanny state plank of the week for me.
Well, you'll make a lot of fans on the left side of the audience because they're always going on and on about how we never nominate anybody for the Tory party. So tell us, Alex, I mean, are you going to go along with this? Or,
no.
I mean, I think he's got a point, to be honest. I mean, we do have a very bizarre Tory party at the moment.
Can I just say, do you know, normally I'm with the right-wing cohort all the way on everything, but there are two areas where I found that I'm not with my crew. One is the dying on a hill for a mask. I don't like masks.
Right.
I really don't like masks.
Do you wear one when you have to?
I have to. I've got a little leopard print one, so I just make it work.
Right.
You know, I've sort of fashionized it, but it's starting to smell like halitosis now. that rag needs a wash. But do you know what? I have to do it. I've had COVID. I've got to do it. If it gets people out their house, I'm just not that bothered about it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I had to go to a shop for the first time yesterday since the Friday mask day was brought in, and I put one on, and it was fine. You know, I was in there for 20 minutes. It's really not the end of the world. I picked up some wine at Waitrose, a few bits and pieces.
Did you manage to drink it through the mask?
I didn't.
You cut
No, I didn't. I waited till I got home.
Drinking.
I was alarmed at how quickly I managed to drink it, though. I have to go back and get some more soon. But you know. It's really not that much of an imposition.
No, and so talking about prohibition drinking, you know, Kevin's absolutely right. We are now going to enter this stage of looking at the government, analysing our well-being and health in general. But on this, strangely, for the man who works for the Mirror, trashing Boris, I'm going to defend him, and normally I like trashing Boris, but nanny state is just one of those terms that people use to, you know, when there's a new raft of legislation people don't like. It probably happened over seatbelts. People are, why do we have to wear a seatbelt when we drive? This is ridiculous. Now people understand entirely that that's sensible. We know tobacco kills. The biggest killer in the Western world, and it's not actually just the Western world, but the developing world as well, is obesity. The obesity pandemic, as it is enormous. And I keep having these people say to me, yeah, but there are people living longer than ever before. And, you know, is the obesity crisis killing us? Because they lived in an era before takeaways, before Uber Eats, before fast food, before highly processed food, before super-size me cinema portions of popcorn and fizzy drinks. And sugar is a drug. People don't realise sugar's a drug.
You should be able to understand that, and
no,
you should be able to
okay, so I agree.
Consume whatever you want to eat.
These are not illegal.
I'm not saying they should be.
So why should we be banned? It's not the government's job to ban us from all this.
Okay, so not banned. And I don't think you can't ban sugar. That's insane. Because it's a naturally occurring product. But I actually do think
he wants to ban adverts with sugar in them.
I mean, I don't think the approach is right.
Right.
I don't think the approach is right because I think what it does is focus and penalises the consumer and not the arbiters of the problem, which is big food.
Right.
And the really sort of unhealthy food chain to use a pun, between government and big food is wrong. You've got directors of some of the biggest manufacturers sitting on the boards and bodies of the medical advisory groups who come up with the dietary programs for the nation's health. It's not right. There are huge conflicts of interest. Sugar is a drug, and I think that what needs to happen is more people need to be educated entirely on how that affects their metabolism and how that's affecting their health. It's very clear from all the empirical evidence that we're getting fatter and we're getting unhealthier. And yes, we do need to do something. But I think the onus is on the industries, and the government should be putting the onus on them and not using their cosy connections and instead coming up with taxes and penalising the consumer.
Explain the £2 billion he wants to give to the cycling community
this
of
is
my
Boris
money.
trying to remake the country in his own image. And frankly, bobbing around on one of his little bikes didn't do much for his waistline, did it? He's not a walking advertisement for the benefits of cycling.
I prefer, there was a comedian who, I've forgotten who it was who actually said it, but who said the most useful thing, I think, about all the sorts of food that you shouldn't be eating, the chocolate aisle in the supermarket. He said, why don't you just make it really, really thin, so that only thin people can get down there and buy the stuff, which is actually not a bad idea. You take the crisp aisle and make it that...
It's education.
None of this is going to work.
No.
It's just virtue signaling.
It is.
Oh, obesity, got to sort it out. Here's the government. Here's the instructions. Nobody will pay any attention to it at all.
But this is why it needs to work,
But
and
it won't.
Growing up, kids are taught don't take drugs, don't smoke cigarettes.
That doesn't work either.
Well, no, it has. Look, rates of tobacco uptake are lower than they've ever been for a long time.
They're all smoking dope instead.
It makes for a more calm society during lockdown.
Nitrous oxide.
No, but
you say that, but unfortunately people seem to be stabbing one another over the turf wars about who sells it.
There seems to be a ground zero of just anti-public health campaigning. And I think when it comes to the nation's
here
diet,
it's right here.
we need to do something. Oh yeah, PHE.
Defund.
They can go.
Public Health England, that's a good idea.
They can jog on, I'm with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely right.
Public Harm England is what they should be called.
And with present
useless in a crisis.
Present company accepted because you were a politician. Politicians, by and large, have ridiculously useless lives. Most of them don't know anything. They haven't been anywhere. Most of the people, who sit in the cabinet don't actually know what ordinary people do. No. They don't know what they think. They don't know where they go on holiday. They don't know anything about them. So the idea that they're going to say, now look here, you're going to stop eating that horrible cereal, aren't you? People are going to go, no, I'm going to keep eating it. Thanks very much indeed. I don't have any time for you.
If people understood to make their own autonomous decision on what eating the awful cereal is going to do, if they actually understood, because frankly, people out there don't.
Still eat it.
They don't.
They would.
I know that.
If you don't put your seatbelt on and then you smash into a lorry on the M5 and end up through a windscreen, be it on your own head or lack of head, as the case would be.
Millions of people will not pay a blind bit of attention to this.
I think most people know that if they eat a doner kebab every single day of their life, it won't be very good for them. They'll get very fat. So that's why they don't do it.
Actually, do you know what? If you ate a doner kebab every single day of your life, with a bit of salad, you'd probably be okay. If you're washing it down with a big can of Coca-Cola or a bottle of claret, that's the problem.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm saying. It's
actually,
the actual dietary advice.
I always have 7 pints of lager.
I always have a bottle of claret in my doner kebab.
It's the itself that's wrong, which is for too many decades now imposed upon us this low-fat diet, which happens to be high in sugar.
Yeah.
And if you look at the way that the body metabolizes, we need natural fats. Doner kebab isn't what I would call
not really
good
natural.
quality natural. It's not like smoked mackerel and avocado, but it's the sugar intake that's really hurting us. And that is the problem. And that's where big food are lobbying so hard, because to make their low-fat products, they have to put about 8 teaspoons of sugar in. If you read the back of packets, it's killing us.
But another fear in this arena is, I take your point, it's better for the population to be healthy, but this is another area where the government is attacking commercialism. It's attacking companies trying to make money.
Yeah.
And in these current circumstances, this isn't the right time to tell cereal producers do this and to stop advertising. It's not the right time to do it. Because people will lose their jobs.
It is the right time. So we've had a massive global public health crisis, which has exposed obesity as the main comorbidity risk factor.
We haven't got any money.
That's not true. They don't know that obesity has got anything to do with it.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
All the empirical data basically weighs
the
up.
The empirical data says that 1.6 to 1 would be the situation where obese people who are morbidly obese, not just fat, morbidly obese people who have died of coronavirus. 1.6 to 1. It's not exactly a landslide, is it?
But I think if you look at, you have to look at the
kinds
comorbidities
of
created
other
by
things
metabolic
involved.
syndrome.
There's all
And that's
sorts of
usually,
other
you can have really bad metabolic syndrome as a result of poor diet and actually be really thin. So I do think that what we put into our bodies...
By the way, a great way not to get coronavirus is to take up heavy smoking.
This is your David Hockney.
Statistically, it's a
or
fact.
not to go out at all. Anyway, may I remind you that this is a short show. We haven't got all day. And we haven't even got past one nomination yet.
You can get off your health food bandwagon.
I mean, I didn't realise you turned into some kind of maniac since the last time I saw you. For God's sake.
You didn't tell me she was a communist.
I mean, this is what happens when you go down to Gloucester and sit out there for a while. Now, you don't agree with him about David Hockney, do you?
No, so David Hockney's my plank and he was your hero. Just because here's the man who injected heroin into his eyeballs. He probably didn't, so that's libelous and, whatever.
I don't think he bothered suing
maybe he
you for
did
that.
stuff. He did stuff and produced sort of, semi-adequate, not particularly technically rendered paintings that sold really well. And now he's coming out saying to everyone should take up heavy smoking. Everyone should,
He's not quite saying
Well, I mean,
that.
he hasn't exactly had a bad
No,
life.
he
has he?
didn't say that. His letter to the Telegraph concluded, you're telling us that if you if you don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't eat unhealthy food like cheese and meat, red meat, you'll live to 104. But what kind of a life is that?
Now, I agree partially in that. Cheese and red meat are very good for you. Keep those in, by the way. If we're going to have the Alex diet lesson as a thread through this, that one stays.
I thought cheese was bad for your cholesterol. But I don't want to get back on the
it's all
food
wrong.
conversation.
It's the natural fat.
He stands for
versus the
freedom
sugars.
of choice. These are not illegal.
I agree.
If you want to smoke, drink, eat unhealthy food, it's not illegal. That's what he stands for, the ability to be able to do what you want to do.
Who is this geezer sitting by his, probably painting his
Well,
swimming
he's had a pretty
pool?
good life, and he
Well,
smoked
it's a
all his
great
life, and he's still healthy.
but-
He's still alive.
But great, he's earned buckets of money.
And he's contributed an awful lot, actually, to the joy of our general
In what
society.
sense? What
He's
joy?
painted some lovely paintings that you could go and look. You don't have to like his paintings.
He's the greatest
but he's
living
far more
Englishman who
bloody
doesn't live in
useful.
England.
He's far more useful.
Again, it's a bit like Sean Connery from his SNP Towers in the Hollywood Hills throwing in his 2-bit. I'm like, come on, Hockers, just fax over some latest work for some
But
sort of,
I don't know what you're
for the
criticising him for. He's
reopening
just
of a
saying that
gallery.
sentient
He
adults.
doesn't need to mind his own business. If he's wading in,
Well,
throwing in
what
his
about
2-bit,
why
he's along
doesn't
with everyone
Boris mind his
else.
own business then? Boris is sticking his nose
He's
into
the
everybody
Prime
else's
Minister.
business.
He can't mind his own business.
That's not his job. No, his job is to run the country, not to run my life or yours or his.
The biggest impact on the NHS is the obesity
Oh,
crisis.
don't go on about the NHS. Protect the NHS.
Oh, no,
that's it.
don't
Do you
get
know
me on
what?
that one.
Actually, here's what
Sick
people.
of protecting the NHS.
I mean, what
I've
the
got more
NHS
important things to do in my life than
is
protect
for
the
treat-
NHS.
The NHS is for treating sick people, right? If you do away with sick people, presumably just do away with the NHS, defund it like you defund the police. You won't need it anymore
this
because everybody will
whole-
be so healthy that there won't be anybody to treat.
This whole thing is like saying, don't get sick because it will cause problems for the NHS. It's ridiculous.
But that's the point.
Look, I'm
That
with you
is
on
the
that.
point.
I am with you on that.
Right, I'm going to move on now because I'm sick to death of this arguing about health and nonsense. Omid Scobie, who I must admit I hadn't heard of until about a week ago.
Sounds like a cartoon character.
I was going to say, he sounds like a mutation.
Well,
Coronavirus.
in Scotland, they've got a phrase saying you haven't got a Scooby, and this guy doesn't have a Scooby either, and he's apparently Scottish and Iranian, half and half, right? I don't think I've ever come across somebody who was both Scottish and Iranian. He's apparently the royal correspondent for Harper's Magazine, which I don't think I've ever read. He's also apparently the correspondent on royal business for ABC television in America.
Mm-hmm.
What he did apparently when he was interviewed by the Times, he's co-written this book called Finding Freedom, which is the most ridiculous
He's
title.
lost his birth certificate, right?
Well, apparently he's lost his birth certificate. He told the Times that he was 6 years younger than he
33
actually
and he's
is.
39,
He's only
yeah.
33 when he's 39. He's a very odd-looking guy. I don't know. He looks like a
seen him.
waxwork. He's got a very odd-looking face, and he looks like if somebody
I
was
want to see it now.
somebody was to invent a kind of I don't know, sort of sex doll. This guy would have the face of a sex doll. I mean, it's very strange, right? I'll show it to you. And,
Is he like the melted Madame Tussauds
yeah,
version
kind
of a
of,
human?
yeah, very smooth skin. You know, just very weird looking.
I always think Keir Starmer looks a bit waxy.
He does a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
He's even stranger looking at Keir Starmer, to be fair. But anyway, this book, Finding Freedom, right? He's admitted to various interviewees that neither Harry or Meghan actually were interviewed for the book. But the book is full of stuff. The book is full of stuff.
Sure, they weren't.
The book is full of stuff that only they could have known about, right? And of course, they haven't in any way denied any of it. And normally what they do is they sue everybody who's written anything about them that they think is an invasion of their privacy. Apparently, they don't think this is an invasion of their privacy. So, I mean, he's probably going to make quite a lot of money out of it, this guy.
Yeah,
but, I mean, he's first of all, he's a plank for being a friend of Meghan Markle's because, I mean, everybody knows how that ends. Everybody knows how that ends.
That's about as plankish as it
gets. In a couple of years, he'll ring her and she'll have changed her number and she'll have moved on and she won't be using him anymore because she's got what she wanted. But it is a really ridiculous. I mean, I'm not even putting Harry and Meghan in it this week. I'm just putting this guy.
Do you know what astonishes me about this debate going on around this ludicrous book, this hagiography right now, is all the media discussing, well, did they talk to them or not? They say that they didn't, and Harry and Meghan say that they didn't. Of course they damn well did.
Well, it's either that
Don't be so ridiculous.
I've run out of steam with Harry and Meghan now. It's just the same old, same old. She's going to bob up in front of a white wall, squeezing his testes, a gun behind his head, and he's going to be like, we must do our best to tackle injustice. And we're just going to be like, oh, do you know what?
Make the world a better place.
Yeah.
I just can't wait. I can't wait for them to be called to the witness
I'll tell you
box
one thing about those
against
two.
Associated Newspapers.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be a great case. But the thing about those two is, okay, the coronavirus crisis, lockdown in LA, and has caused them all sorts of problems. But their move to America so far has been an unmitigated disaster. They have not made a damn penny.
Right.
They have been at the centre of scandal or disaster after disaster, as you say. The suing of the Mail on Sunday is mad,
Idiotic.
and then they're like,
let's
now
see
they're
how that
suing
works
the
out for Johnny
Sky.
Depp.
They're suing the Sky because someone unknown flew a drone above their Hollywood
also,
mansion.
apparently they're quite surprised that there's paparazzi in Hollywood because they didn't know there were any.
If you want privacy and you're famous, it's the place to go,
isn't it?
Honestly,
Isn't
they are just a caricature of themselves at this point.
Ludicrous.
They are.
It is
but
ridiculous.
this Ovid scabies. I mean,
Ovid scabies.
COVID scabies.
The sex doll lookalike.
COVID scabies. The sex doll. Is he a plank? Because I've never heard of him. He had a job which
he's
isn't
a
a
plank.
real job, did he? Writing about royals.
Well, I don't
It's
even know
not
what
like,
Harper's
Ain't
Magazine's
Saving
for.
Lives.
I mean, I never remember Harper's and Queen.
The man is now going to make loads of money, so I don't think that's plankish. I think that's beautiful, exploitative. He's shown the metal of his.
You need to read some of his
ingenuity.
statements. He's a plank.
He's definitely no question. Right, Kevin, number 2 for you.
I want to say Cycling Mikey.
Oh, yes.
His real name, I think, is Mike Van Erp. He's the guy.
Van Erp?
Yeah,
That's a great
Mike
name.
Van
Can we call him
Twerp.
Van Herpes,
Van
as
Twerp.
we've had COVID
Van
scabies.
Mike Van Twerp, Mike Van Herpes is better. I've been beaten again on the joke front. He's the little snivelling sneak who saw film director Guy Ritchie in his car in a stationary traffic jam, texting. Okay, you're not supposed to do that.
No, I'm not even sure he was texting.
Well, he was looking at his phone.
Gosh.
Mike Van Twerp took his picture, reported him to the police, and got him nicked, and he's now banned from driving.
But also then put out a sort of running commentary video of what he was doing.
Yeah.
Right? Then it turns out he's got a website where he's got loads of these people on there.
That's what he does.
That's
It's
what
his
he
full-time-
does. His full-time occupation is basically driving around in London, taking pictures of people and shopping them on his
and
website.
I feel there's got to be some karmic poetic justice that he's going to be doing this. He's going to be going down, Park Lane or something with his old phone out in between the cars looking, and someone's going to be so distracted by their phone they're just going to open the car door. And he'll be gone.
I mean, I do fear for Cycling Mikey or whatever he calls himself. There will be some. One day, someone's going to flare up against him. But as somebody pointed out to me on Twitter, that's what he wants.
But it's another one of these, mind your own business stories.
Well,
isn't it?
exactly. This is
Stay out of it.
And there are loads of them doing this, and they've got like a league table. Cycling Mikey's at the top about how much
you see all these guys with
worth
the
of
cameras.
fines they've been responsible for. Cycling
You see them
Mikey's
with the cameras on the top of the helmet.
Cycling Mikey's up around 400,000 quid, and they're proud of all this. And my proposition is that we're turning into a nation of nasty little sneaks. Everybody says, "Oh, what about all the people that get killed by people who text on?" There's no equivalence of that. That's a ludicrous comparison, and I worry about people like this, and this is the reason I worry, is when you find self-righteous citizens are going round appointing themselves as law-enforcing agents of the state, then you are living in a totalitarian society.
You've
got put that mask on, or you're going to kill everybody.
Nazi Germany.
Yeah, I know.
What happens in China to this day, in Myanmar. There are little sneaks telling the government about people who are not conforming. That's what Cycling Mikey is.
is definitely Mike Herpes because
Mike
this
Herpes,
innocuous,
the
invisible
Mike, you are a plank.
disease.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
he
afraid
sounds
that's a very
dreadful.
good-
He
really
sounds dreadful.
horrible, ghastly
I don't
individual.
care for him.
Who's your number 2?
Oh, it pains me, Lewis Hamilton.
Why does it pain you?
But I'm such a big Formula One addict, and I don't like throwing my peoples under the bus. But
Yeah. He has
I'm
made
a
the
Vettel
list
fan.
a few times already this year. I
Yeah,
have to
I'm a
say.
Vettel fan anyway.
Yeah.
Until Vettel started taking the knee, and I'm like, we've been fantasy married in my head since 2008, and we're having to talk divorce papers right now.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of that.
They're not all taking the
But-
knee. They may you support somebody who's not
A
taking
few
the
of
knee.
them didn't, and now he's throwing his toys out the pram because some of them didn't. And of course, he's done this anti-vaxxing thing on Instagram.
Oh, has he?
Yeah, he did some sort of Bill Gates conspiracy. He's trying to put microchips in people's sheds. Something.
Oh, what, is he,
now
is
he's
he
had
one of
to
those
do.
that's what you think?
It's
Bill
easy
Gates-
to
The problem
That is
is,
the big
this
trope.
is when,
Yeah, that's the big trope.
exactly, this is the trope. But this
It's
is when
all a
people
Bill
who
Gates
aren't
conspiracy,
involved
yeah.
in politics, who are brilliant and talented and respected and admired and loved in their own capacity, somehow start delving into social interference and politics and get it wrong. And what annoys me is actually, I think Hamilton is, without doubt, he is one of the best drivers that's ever been created, ever. You can put him in a combine harvester and he would be mid-grid. The guy is a real talent and he is grafted for it. He didn't come from opportunity like so many racing drivers do. I actually think there's so much amazing about him. He's a great spokesman. I think that he's someone that everyone can look up to. I really do. I'm not his number one fan,
he maybe
but
used to be somebody that people looked up to,
right.
but now he's lost
and what
a
annoys
lot
me
of
is this
people's
whole
respect.
BLM stuff. He's gone all in, without looking at the small print of that organisation, as a lot of people have done. And that organisation is
Premier
dangerous.
League, for example.
Yeah. The cricket board, all of them. He's gone all in without looking at the small print. And now he's set up the Hamilton Foundation to get kids from diverse backgrounds into motorsport. I agree with the Hamilton
there's nothing wrong
Foundation.
with that, though, is there?
No. My question is, hold on, why weren't you doing this anyway?
Yeah.
As someone who's been through it and as someone in privilege, why weren't you quietly pushing and doing this without suddenly wearing a T-shirt and getting on one knee and doing the whole fist in the air
And having
thing?
the old chain around his neck.
And
all
then,
that cobbles.
and at the same time
I thought you were going
pointing
to
at other
nominate him for that
drivers.
ridiculous outfit he was wearing the other day.
The
You know,
hair
sort of
needs
the black and white
hair
thing.
needs a rethink, and
Yeah.
the clothing's not my
Well, do you know-
aesthetic. But
Well, one of the best tweets I saw was somebody comparing him to Zoolander. Who actually dressed like that in Zoolander, and he suddenly found the same idea and dressed like it. I mean, he is definitely planking.
it upsets me because he is the greatest racing driver that Britain's ever produced, basically. I mean, look, I love the Clarks and the Mosses and the Mansells and the Hunts, but Hamilton is, whether you look at historically the romanticism of these great drivers or not, Hamilton's exceptional. He's
really-
next level. And it just upsets me because Britain should be looking at this guy going, yes, lad, and yes for being the first black driver. I think that is a real historic achievement and an amazing thing. And he's ruining it. He's ruining his own credibility. And I'm sorry, Lewis, but...
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I think the problem with people like Lewis Hamilton, you give him some sympathy, he has sort of triumphed in a white world. But he's bought into this ludicrous notion that silence is violence. So that all of his white compatriots, his white rivals, they have never spoken up about racism, therefore they're racist. Silence is not violence. Mostly it's just complete, people don't care that much.
It's
It's indifferent.
Well, actually, we can't.
It's indifference. Silence is indifference.
The problem is they want both ways. If you or I were to turn around and go, we need to do this to tackle racism, it's like, well, white people don't get an opinion on that.
That's the point. Silence is indifference. That's the point.
Well,
And,
I mean,
and that's where
the silent
he's being
majority-
vituperative towards people who don't deserve it.
But the silent majority now is starting to get a bit fed up with all of this nonsense, aren't they? Because people do generally not feel particularly strongly about most things. Most people don't have anything to say about lots of stuff.
They've got better things to
know,
worry
But
about.
most people, but the problem is most people don't know what they can say. It's that minefield of what you're allowed to
Yeah, but
say.
there's quite a lot of people who don't have anything to say as well.
Oh, true. There's
You know.
also, and actually, people rubbed along more than happily. I'm not saying there weren't problems, but the biggest issue we have right now is, we're not rubbing along because we're not out there in the world. We're
Because
sitting
the
there
economy
doing
is
this
going
instead.
nowhere. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So being told that you're not allowed to be apathetic, you're not allowed to be indifferent, is another attack on our freedom.
Yeah.
We are allowed to be apathetic and indifferent.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much.
You're allowed not to believe in something if you don't.
So,
if you don't
Lewis,
believe in it, it's
silence
as simple as
isn't
that.
violence.
Silence is not violence. Peter Tatchell is my second nominee. He put out a tweet this week where he says, "Is it right that Black and Asian Britons are barred from being the UK's head of state for the foreseeable future?" And he attached to his tweet a picture of the royal family, complaining that basically they're all white. There's no reference to Meghan Markle.
Now
but
that
of
Meghan's
course,
gone.
he then attaches, bizarrely, an article that he wrote for The Guardian, but in 2009, because he basically wrote a piece saying that, if you're celebrating the fact that Barack Obama has been elected as the first black president, you must also condemn the royal family. So 11 years later, he doesn't appear to be having much luck, because nobody is in fact condemning the royal family for being white. And I mean, this is sort of an agenda and a rejoinder to what you were saying about Lewis Hamilton, that, just because the royal family is white, apparently that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Well, they're all related to people from Europe. It may well be that in time there will be somebody else who marries into the royal family and they have a child who turns out to be a mixed race child, like Harry and Meghan's son Archie, who doesn't have any mates apparently, and
like his parents.
Yeah, a bit like his
Well,
parents.
they're just setting him up to be a ginger. It's
Yeah,
fine.
exactly. So, at the end of the day, it may well be that there will suddenly be somebody from a different ethnic background who
think we should
becomes the King of England.
Bring back the divine
why
right
does
of
Tatchell
kings.
care?
Well, but we're treading on eggshells, no doubt here. But what tends to happen in a predominantly white country is that white people end up getting the positions of power. I haven't seen too many white leaders in Black Africa.
There's no white
if you
king of
see
the
what I-
Ashanti region. I can tell you that
exactly.
much.
They're not that white.
It's
White
mad
people
But
aren't.
then the solution to this, of course, is to bring back all that mythology of the divine right of kings and have running battles in Bosworth on horseback. I mean, we've got nothing else to do
Might
at the
as
moment.
well.
I could do with a bit
There
of a
you
nice
go.
sort
As
of
long as there's no crowd
battlefield
watching
duel.
it.
It'd have
As
to
long
be
as
all
there's-
health and safety.
Yeah, you couldn't have a crowd.
Masks.
You'd have to wear
Jousting outfits are
jousting
pretty
outfits
good for.
and absolutely no audience whatsoever.
Yeah, I think they're PHE compliant jousting
Yeah,
outfits.
I'm sure they
And
probably
also
are.
social distancing with those long sticks.
With the big
you know.
lances, yeah, absolutely
Yeah.
right. So your third one, Kevin.
My third one, I was torn because obviously you can do these guys every week, but would I choose Jeremy Corbyn for his outrageous repetition of the libel against the whistleblowers of the Labour Party who spoke out on Panorama against anti-Semitism,
Who are now about to bankrupt,
and then slammed his own party leader Keir Starmer for his disappointing political decision, insisting that they would have won the case against these whistleblowers. Actually, Jeremy, they wouldn't. I suspect that he actually doesn't understand the libel laws like he doesn't understand a whole lot of
Understand
things.
much, does he?
But who I've chosen instead of good old planky favourite Jeremy is a planky favourite Keir Starmer for not throwing him out of the party. Don't tell me, Mr. Starmer, or Sir Keir, as you're so egalitarianly called, that you are taking a stand against anti-Semitism, that you are drawing a line under anti-Semitism when you're doing nothing about this senior, very influential member of your party who is standing up to what you're doing and saying, I insist on the right to say that these decent people who blew the whistle about anti-Semitism in your rancid party were in fact bitter and twisted employees trying to get their own back. And also, of course, John Ware, the very respected investigative journalist who presented that programme and researched it, he's sued successfully as well. They've all been apologised to unreservedly by the Labour Party. They've got £500,000 worth of damages, and Jeremy Corbyn is not having it. And for that, I think Keir Starmer should throw him out of the party to show the Jewish community that he really is going to stop anti-Semitism.
And also that it really is the end of that particular period of time.
If he doesn't
because the
do
trouble
it,
with Keir Starmer is that he was in the shadow cabinet that Jeremy Corbyn was in charge of.
Well,
He didn't
the
say
thing
is-
anything
Well, that's
then.
his
Yeah,
problem.
but the other thing of Keir Starmer is he's doing what Theresa May did initially. In the shadow cabinet, he had opinions on things, especially on Brexit. I remember them.
He had
But
two
now
opinions on Brexit.
now he's
How did that go for
leader.
him?
Now he's leader. You can't pin a single position or opinion on him.
Right.
He's like this amorphous. 1 minute he's on a knee about Black Lives Matter, then he's saying people don't have to do it, and he's just this amorphous non-entity. And this is what Theresa May did quite successfully at the beginning of her premiership. So you could
Resigned.
project onto her whatever you wanted. And because we've had Jeremy Corbyn, and the newspapers need a narrative, and right-wing hegemony is not that interesting to them, what they're doing is saying, well, for the first time in a long time, we've got a real good opposition leader. We've got this man who people are taking. I'm like, He doesn't do anything.
He hasn't done anything
is
either.
a waxwork.
Right,
he does
really
nothing.
Is.
Yeah.
When I asked the question a couple of weeks ago, can anybody actually tell me what he's done?
What does he believe
One
in?
thing that he's done, and what does he believe in?
What
Yeah,
does
we're
he know?
talking
What
about
is he?
for Keir, silence isn't violence, it's a way of life.
Yeah, right.
He never says anything
No.
on anything.
No.
But
Yeah.
he has tried, in fairness to him, to be fairly forthright about anti-Semitism because he realises it was the scourge, one of the main scourges, or a serious scourge that ruined them at the election. So he's trying to sort that out.
But you're right to
but
say-
he's not trying to sort it
No.
out.
No, because that's what he does.
No,
He's
because
a
you're
sort
right to
of,
say,
you
as long
know,
as Jeremy Corbyn is still a member of the Labour Party
They've
in
got a
Parliament,
problem.
they've
we
got a
had
problem.
They've
Theresa
got
the
a problem.
appeaser. What have we got with Starmer? Starmer, it's just karma.
Yeah,
Very good.
Keir, throw Jeremy out of the party
Yeah.
and you're not a plank, but since you haven't done it, you are
You
a
are.
plank.
Well, you won't come as any great surprise to you that he was in last week as well for wearing that visor while sitting outside, about 2 metres away from everybody else around a pub picnic table, who were also all wearing visors. And you're kind of going, what's wrong with you? You're outside.
What you don't
You're not
understand
near anyone.
is he'd just been paintballing and he'd seen
Yeah.
that terrible episode of Biker Grove, with the blindness, and he
Yeah.
was taking the necessary precautions
Absolutely.
and then stopped by for a
He
pint
does look like a man that
afterwards.
takes a lot of precautions. Who's your final one then?
Well, Wiley, obviously. No, he hasn't come up yet.
Yes.
What was that?
No,
what
right.
was it? It just
I
came
think
out of
I think
nowhere.
it might have been what can only be described as
I know this guy from singing
a substance abuse moment
Got to
for
be
him.
something, just, yeah. He came, I remember him singing a song about Rolexes, I think, back in the day, but he's
I
not,
must admit, I'd never heard of it.
he's not in my catalogue on Spotify.
Grime is not my thing, really.
He's not on my catalogue on Spotify, but I did know of his existence. Then it was just, he couldn't stop, could he? It's like
Apparently
packet of
he's still
Pringles.
going.
It opened and
He's
off he
still
went.
going.
Apparently he's still going.
What, quietly by
Well,
himself,
no,
steam
no,
coming
round
off the
the clock.
keyboard. Like,
Stream of anti-Semitism.
No, he's now moved. He's moved on to
Invective.
because he's been banned from Twitter for 7 days. He's now on Facebook doing it.
But what?
So he hasn't actually stopped. I mean, so the idea that he's somehow contrite.
Do
He's
you know
not.
what? I think we need to send him to that ranch where Kanye West is and just
Yeah, right.
round them all up together.
I
Brilliant.
think he's a good choice, but I do think he's just literally beneath contempt.
Yeah.
Frankly,
He's dreadful.
frankly, an overgrown child
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah,
act in
dreadful.
an adult
Trying to
world
get
and not
attention.
really,
I
not
agree,
really
I agree.
getting it.
Attention-seeking.
Pathetic.
No,
you know.
exactly right. I
Pathetic.
mean, you could have had Twitter as well for keeping the stuff up there for such a long time.
Yeah.
Taking so long to actually take it all down. Because lots of people are still, even I think as we speak, doing that 48 hours off Twitter as a demonstration of how unhappy they are.
Yeah.
So, but that's a very good one. I'm glad you put him in. Chris Whitty is going to be my final one, the
yes.
Chief Medical Officer, because apparently it was his idea to reintroduce quarantine
Spain thing.
for Spain. And apparently, according
10
to
people.
10 people apparently came back from
Yeah.
Spain. There's 600,000 people there, right, from Britain. 600,000. Now, I can't even work out what percentage 10 is of 600,000, but it's not very much.
It's
We've missed-
infinitesimal.
It's really not very much.
We've missed the funniest story of the week in all of this. The funniest story of the week is
What,
Chris
Grant
Whitty.
Shapps?
Yes.
Grant Shapps.
Yes.
Well, people who are
It's
less
so good.
people who are less unkind than us have said that. Well, of course, Grant Shapps knew that this was coming, and obviously, I mean, Kevin and I were talking about this earlier, and obviously, Mrs. Shapps has put the boot down,
Mrs.
obviously,
Shapps
on
may-
him
he
and
did
said,
know,
"Look,
but
we're
Mrs.
going.
Shapps says we're
I don't
going on
care what you
holiday."
say."
Really? Wow. No, but what's so hilarious, I see it like this sketch from The Thick of It where, Chris Whitty phones up 10 Downing Street comms team and says, right, people are coming back from Spain, coronavirus out of control, we need to stop them, we need to quarantine them. And they're like, oh my gosh, we've been on the back foot, everyone's saying we went into lockdown too late, we've got to be on the front foot with this one, decisive conviction action, right, we're going to cancel the air bridge, let's get Grant on Zoom. Grant, where are you? Can you come and do a conference? Well, where are you, lad? I'm in Spain.
I'm in Spain. Right.
But it is. But
It's just
you know,
classic.
Whitty, or talking about 10 people coming back out of 600,000. These are the vanishingly small statistics we're all dealing with. So there was a time when it looked quite worrying, 1,000 people a day in this country dying from coronavirus. Now, over the last week, a whole week, 192. 2 Mondays ago, 11 people out of a population of 67 million.
Yeah.
And for this, we're in a state of paralysis and
It's
eternal
insane.
fear. It's
I know.
crazy.
Have we not
It's
learned?
crazy.
I know.
Chris Whitty
Yeah.
has got to shut up.
Well,
Chris
I mean,
Whitty needs to go the same way as old Neil
It's
Ferguson.
obvious.
I call him a big
And
head, but he's
also,
got a really small head.
It's obvious,
And no
it's
eyebrows.
obvious as well that Chris Whitty has been driving an awful lot of this kind of, he was the one that said that we shouldn't lift lockdown. He was the one that said we shouldn't be allowing people to open pubs. We shouldn't be going back to restaurants. I mean, this guy obviously doesn't want to see the end of this because maybe he's out of a job.
But when you just look at him, like when you summon him to mind and picture that sort of like, gangly, eyebrowless, bold, affable looking Muppet, he looks like someone who'd wet himself at the sight of his own shadow. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I can only assume that he doesn't go out very much because, he's so terrified.
He only goes out with a hazmat suit on.
Yeah.
But it does boil down to the old Thatcher phrase, wasn't it? That advisors advise and ministers decide.
Yeah.
What's happening? Chris Whitty, after 3 months of every single thing he said being obeyed and acted on by the government, is now acting like I'm the one who decides.
Yeah.
So he ordered Boris to shut down Spain.
Does that not come down to the government doing this guided by the science, which is just the
but
biggest
except it
get-out
keeps
clause
changing.
for not governing?
But also,
right?
That's when
and my argument would be, don't be guided by the science, use science. Let's test people, let's track people, let's trace people, let's actually use empirical stuff.
Yeah.
Don't be guided by science, use it for God's sakes, because all we've done is say, well, some people in some secret room somewhere have suggested we should do this.
Yeah.
Have we actually done a single thing other than Oxford University with a
Yeah.
vaccine? Have we done a single thing to actually use science?
Yeah.
Had that app which was rubbish?
Yeah, but that guided by the science is when the public inquiry comes down the line. You're on your own,
Poor old
scientists.
Whitty.
It's not my fault. It's your
Oh well,
fault.
we're all gonna have to make a human
can't
shield
wait.
around Whitty,
I can't
bring him
wait.
in and protect
Can you imagine?
him.
I mean, it'd be a Chilcot inquiry. It was just deadly dull, and nothing ever comes out of them anyway.
No,
nothing
nothing
will ever come out.
We should
anyway, listen, we're running swiftly out of time here, so we need to get on with our final three. So, Alex, why don't you pick your favourite one of Kevin's three, that we get down to one.
The one that's exercised me the most is herpes Mike and his bicycle.
Yes.
I don't. It just really that bothers me.
Yeah, bicycle Mikey. That's definitely a good one. So you should then choose mine, I guess, and then I'll choose Alex's.
I'm going to choose out of yours. I think Chris Whitty.
It's got to be Chris Whitty, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what were your three again? You had.
I had Wiley, Lewis Hamilton, and
Hockney.
Hockney, yeah.
See,
Well, you're not going to choose Hockney, are you?
I'm not going to choose Hockney. No.
Done, gone, done.
I think it'll have to be Wiley. He's got to be in the top
He's
three.
not very wily.
I don't think he's going to. Yeah, I don't think we should
Explosive
make him the
levels of
winner, but we should make him number three. Well, how are you guys feeling about making him number three?
Sure.
So that means it's
he
between.
deserves something.
So that means it's between Mikey, the plank, bicycle Mikey, and Chris Whitty.
So I'm going Whitty.
I would go Whitty.
I think it's the cyclist, but
I hate that cyclist though.
Yeah, well, okay, so he's the plank of the week.
No,
then.
because I wanted to go on Ollie
All
Bobs
right,
and Whitty
okay.
stopped that.
Can we give him a sort of
Well, it'll be number two. Well, it'll be number two.
Yeah, highly commended second.
That's pretty good for first-time entry
I'll go
into the
with
planks
Whitty.
list.
No,
I mean, Whitty will probably be in it
Whitty's
again.
more important.
I think Chris
Yeah.
Whitty is plank of the week, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well,
I
thank you
agree.
guys. So there you are, Chris Whitty. You've finally done something right. You've actually won plank of the week. Well done to you. Absolutely ridiculous decision making. We look forward to more of it coming soon. Kevin, Alex, thank you very much indeed. That's plank of the week. Don't forget, subscribe to YouTube, watch what we're doing, and like it, please. And we'll see you next week.